Good afternoon. I am Acting Chief Sylvie Hoth. I am joined today by Thunder Bay Police Services Board Chair Jackie Dojak and Acting Deputy Chief Don Lewis. We would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Ojibwe people of the Fort William First Nation in the territory of the Robinson Superior Treaty. We also recognize the contribution of our Métis citizens. We will be available for questions at the end of all of our statements. Our purpose today is to provide updates on a number of matters which are of interest to the public. To say that we are in challenging times would be an understatement. I would like to assure everyone that the men and women of the Thunder Bay Police Service are doing their duty to serve and protect everyone who visits Thunder Bay or calls Thunder Bay home. As members of this community, we, as a service, have a vested interest in the safety and well-being of all people. We are united by common goals, and we are committed to making our city a safe place to live, study, visit, and thrive. I would like to thank the Police Services Board and our citizens for their support and confidence in our service. The board's governance role is crucial. Board Chair Jackie Dojak will now comment on the Ontario Civilian Police Commission's Section 25 review.
Good afternoon. Is that one? Mm-hmm. Good afternoon. In Ontario, police services and police service boards are ultimately accountable to the public through the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, also known as OCPC. The Commission is conducting an investigation pursuant to Section 25, 1, B and C of the Police Services Act. The OCPC has notified the board that, and I quote, an investigation under Section 25 is not punitive and is not directed at individual conduct of members of the board. Rather, it's focused on ensuring that the board is providing sufficient oversight to the Thunder Bay Police Service in a manner that ensures adequate and effective police services and that maintains public confidence in the delivery of police services in Thunder Bay. The Thunder Bay Police Services Board is cooperating fully with the Commission. The oversight which the Commission provides is critical to public trust and confidence in the board's governance role with our police service.
On Monday, June 5th, OPP Commissioner Hawks confirmed that the OPP had recently conducted a review of our investigation into the death of Stacey DeBungy. This review was done at the request of the Thunder Bay Police Service. In the fall of 2016, the Thunder Bay Police Service Chief of Police had requested that the OPP review the case. At that time, the OPP indicated that they would not do so since the investigation was the subject of a complaint to the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, also known as the OIPRD. The OPP was approached again by the Thunder Bay Police Service in January of 2017 to conduct a review of this case. At that time, the OPP were able to take on the review, which was started on February 1st, 2017. We were provided with a copy of the OPP review on May 15th, 2017, and their report is now being reviewed by the Thunder Bay Police Service. The OIPRD will, in the near future, report on their review of our investigation. Acting Deputy Chief Lewis will now provide some perspective as to the efforts to investigate the tragic deaths of Tammy Kiash and Josiah Begg. He will also provide you with information as to our ongoing Riverbank Patrol project, which has been in place since the fall of 2016 to provide patrols of our city's waterways.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is a brief overview of the two most recent deaths in our city's McIntyre River floodway. The first being Tammy Kiash, 17 years old, and Josiah Begg, 14 years old. On May the 7th, 2017, Tammy Kiash was reported missing at 23 minutes after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 8:41 p.m. the same day, police had responded to the discovery of a body located in the McIntyre floodway near Redwood Avenue and Ford Street. The body is later identified to be that of Tammy Kiash. On May the 10th, 2017, the post-mortem examination was conducted in Toronto. As previously reported to the media, evidence indicated Tammy's death was consistent to that of drowning. Several people have been interviewed by the investigators. This file remains open and continues to be actively investigated, and Tammy's family is regularly updated. May the 8th, 2017. Josiah Begg is reported missing at 2 minutes after 10 in the morning. The next 10 days saw an average of 10 police officers, members of the police service, both officers and civilians, actively engaged and working on this investigation. Investigators conducted interviews both in and outside the city of Thunder Bay. The assistance of several organizations was requested and utilized, including Thunder Bay Thunder Bay Fire and Rescue, Anishinaabe Police, Ontario Provincial Police, Anishinaabe Nation, researchers, searchers, Facebook, and countless volunteers. Physical searches conducted utilized people on foot, boats, helicopter, drones, and divers. On May the 18th, 2017, OPP divers discovered a body in the McIntyre River floodway in the area of Atlantic Avenue. The body was later identified as Josiah Begg. May the 21st, 2017, the postmortem was conducted in Toronto. This file remains open and continues to be actively investigated. Josiah's family is regularly updated. As of today's date, there is no evidence to link another person or group as being responsible for the deaths of either Tammy Kiash or Josiah Begg. As stated, the Thunder Bay Police welcomes any and all information from any source that could assist investigators in this case. A few of the initiatives that the Thunder Bay Police is engaged actively in. In October 2016, a foot patrol initiative began, which involves members of the Thunder Bay Police Uniform Patrol Division. They conduct foot patrols along the pathways in identified areas of concern. 3 areas currently identified are McVicker Creek, McIntyre River floodway, and the Kaministiquia River. Another patrol initiated by the Anishinaabe Nation in November of 2016 is known as the Bear Clan. Thunder Bay Police have assisted in safety awareness training with the Bear Clan members and look forward to working with them in their foot patrol efforts. The Thunder Bay Police Community Services Branch is currently working with the LCBO on a project to address alcohol getting into the hands of underage persons.
Statements were made at a recent news conference held by Anishinaabe Nation leaders that the Thunder Bay Police Service have the RCMP investigate Tammy and Josiah's deaths. At this time, we do not believe that this is a practical or necessary action to take. The OAPRD will be reviewing these 2 deaths investigation as part of their current review, and we are fully cooperating with the director on this matter. As stated by Acting Deputy Chief Lewis, there has been a tremendous effort by the police and the community who come together in support of the families during these difficult investigations.
On May 29th, hundreds of people gathered at City Hall to take part in a community prayer walk held in memory of Tammy Kiash, whose life tragically ended at age 17. The walk was also intended to support the parents, family, friends, and home community of Josiah Begg, whose life tragically ended at age 14. We gathered together not as institutions, groups, politicians, or people with differences. Instead, we gathered as parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, excuse me, sons, daughters, and friends. Indigenous leaders spoke of, I quote, building bridges and taking affirmative action with shared responsibility, and, I quote, focusing not on differences but on common goals. We were inspired by this prayer and unity walk, which showed what can happen when we stand up to support each other.
There is still much to be reconciled. There are many questions that still need to be answered. We would like to thank Fort William First Nation Chief Peter Collins for his offer of leadership and support. Together with the City of Thunder Bay and all community members, we can move from conflict to cooperation. Solutions to hard problems come only when we open our hearts and minds to each other and commit to working together. The Thunder Bay Police Service and Police Services Board are prepared to work with those who share common goals of community safety and wellness and the rights of all individuals to live without fear. There is much to do, there is much to learn, and we encourage all members of this community to join us, to work together to make this an inclusive community for all who live, study, and visit here. Thank you.
Now we'll open the question.
So I have a couple of questions about the Kiash Bank investigations as it relates to NAM's request for an outside investigation of these deaths. I have on record that for Tammy Kiash, that you guys were notified Saturday night of her being missing or not being reported to her home, although reports say that an actual missing reports person or whatever wasn't completed until the following day. So there is a span of hours from Saturday night to Sunday afternoon that still aren't accounted for in terms of efforts to locate her. The other part of that for Babe was there were at least 4 consecutive, I have this on record from you guys also, is that there's at least 4 consecutive days where there was no active ground search for Babe. And during that time, because it was said that there was no other locations to be searched for him. And that time was being used to review surveillance, to talk to people, but there was still a big period of time where there was no active search, and the question remains, I guess, and the concerns remain, given those circumstances, that efforts maybe weren't enough in those cases at those times. Can you respond to that, please?
If I can respond to your first, I believe your first question was with respect to Tammy.
Yeah.
And the night before, there was a report of, that wasn't a missing person report. That didn't occur until the following day.
But the police were notified that she had been, that she wasn't home Saturday night when she was supposed to. She had a 10 o'clock curfew.
That's right. There was.
So you guys were notified of that Saturday night.
Without getting into details of why we were contacted the night before, we were contacted, but it wasn't in relation to reporting her missing. That was done the next day. But beyond that, I really can't comment on that.
So you can't confirm that you guys were aware that she was not where she was supposed to be Saturday night?
There was something that was reported the night before, but it wasn't an actual missing person report. Beyond that, I can't comment on it because of young offender issues and those types of things.
Was there concern for her safety at that point?
None that we were aware of. There weren't safety concerns identified until the following day.
Would her not being at home when she was supposed to not a safety concern, especially for a child in care, with her history?
Without further information on the case, I can't comment further on to my knowledge from the night before. the following day is when there were safety concerns identified, and that's when the missing person report was filed. As far as Josiah Begg, there were enormous amount of resources poured into that case, which was understandable and necessary. And several pieces of information were continuously coming into the service, and each had to be chased down and covered off under their own merit. Some involved searching particular areas, and when those areas were searched and exhausted, we were waiting for more information coming in. There was some information that was obviously conflicting, suggesting that he was seen by eyewitnesses. That also had to be chased down. So an enormous amount of information coming in, and not all of it warranted ground search and those types of things.
So it's acceptable that there was a period of at least 4 days where no one was actively looking for Josiah Begg, a 15-year-old boy?
Well, actively looking would be not just foot searches. There were, the investigation itself was active to the point where he was apparently seen in different areas.
I'm talking about an active search, so whether it be ground or in water.
Well, to this date, there's no information that he has ever been seen in the water. That was done to, I realize that. That was done to cover off that piece of information that had to be covered off. But it was never received from anyone that he was in the water.
Does the Thunder Bay Police accept the concerns of not just First Nations leaders, but families involved, concerned people in the city, that these kind of gaps may indicate that maybe more could be done in these cases? Do you accept those concerns that you're hearing from people?
Well, those are mainly concerns from people that perhaps wouldn't be privy to the entire investigation or its contents.
But you guys are saying you're not giving anybody that information.
As in any investigation that is under the care of the police service, it's not always open to the public to be aware of every piece of information.
After 9 First Nations kids have been found in river deaths, is informing the public and reassuring them not a priority?
It is a priority.
Any further questions?
Absolutely. The fact that we're having this conference right now seems to indicate the fact that police acknowledges that there is an issue within the community right now as regards to policing. Just from what you've had the time to look over the past couple months in the year, from a police perspective and a board perspective, what have you acknowledged that you have failed in or have not done properly over the past year, or at all recently?
Well, I think as a policing agency, we understand the concerns that are being raised. The inquest, for example, was a very thorough process and highlighted some areas and recommendations. As a policing agency, we've taken those quite seriously. Out of the 145 recommendations from the inquest, 8 were directed to the Thunder Bay, specifically to the Thunder Bay Police Service. And we have been a very active partner at the table with many community partners, agencies, with respect to making our community safe and addressing those concerns.
Okay, so you've identified that there's things that you have done correctly, but that doesn't address the things that you have done incorrectly. There must be things that you have to have identified that have not happened properly in the past.
That's correct. And I mean, we've looked at those recommendations. We've looked at how we conduct business. And obviously we have learned from those gaps. And we continue to want to address those concerns and do a better job as to how we provide our services, whether it be in a missing person case, in a death, or any type of investigation.
Are you able to identify what those gaps are that you need to address?
Well, in terms of gaps, I mean, when you look at specifically in terms of the inquest, it really focuses on our missing person policies, our missing person approaches. And we have been we're actively working on those recommendations and addressing the need to work more cooperatively in terms of changing our policies, including other agencies, which we have been doing with respect to the searches, and adapting our policies to reflect that.
And another question, again, both for the board and the service, and Jackie, I'd like you to respond to if possible. There is an open call for an investigation right now, both for the board and the service. With the board supposed to be providing oversight of the service right now, are you not concerned at the optics right now of having a joint meeting, sort of outlining what you're doing right now?
I think in terms of the optics, it's an opportunity for us to present together, and there are concerns out there, so we're giving the media an opportunity to hear what we have to say and to question us. If we think about from the board's perspective, this investigation has come as a result made to OCPC. It's the first time that, to my knowledge, this board has had a complaint made against it. And so, the investigation is going to be starting. And we certainly, we're dedicated volunteer citizens in this community who work on behalf of the citizens of Thunder Bay to provide civilian oversight. So if we need to do something differently, we certainly will do it. We've not had a complaint before. Complaint has been made. The investigation will take place. We'll see what the investigation determines. If there are recommendations, we'll certainly look at, implement them. But at this point, we need to see what the investigation shows. As I say, this is the first time we've had a complaint.
I was just going to add that I think it's important to recognize that there are barriers in the justice system, which includes police. As a police service alone, we can't cure systemic racism, and we can't fix all of the underlying issues. We are a partner at the table, and we're committed to working with those partners and making our community safe.
And maybe if I can just add on in terms of the partnership, all of the board members also serve, two of the board members are city councilors. They serve on a number of committees in the city. The other two of us are not city councilors, but we serve on a number of volunteer organizations, charitable organizations. And so, we are aware of, we're involved in this board in police oversight, but we are involved in a number of ways in the community. And we are all, I think a big message today is we love this community. We don't want a divided community. And right now, there appears to be certainly some division in the community. And we really believe, all of us here at this table, and I could speak for the service and the board, we all want to work with our community partners and the people who are in agencies and leadership positions. But more than that, we really believe that every citizen of Thunder Bay needs to step up to the plate and say, okay, what kind of a community do we want? Do we want an inclusive community? And if we do, then we all have a role to play in this. And we can't, say it's somebody's, just belongs, that's for somebody to do and it's not my problem. I think every one of us needs to look in the mirror and say, yeah, it is my problem. I have chosen live in this city, or students who come to study here, or visitors who come here to access the services here, health services and so on, that we all have a role to play in making this an inclusive community and to reduce those systemic barriers for the people who are encountering them. And Indigenous people certainly encounter systemic barriers, not just in the justice system, but in many of the services. And I guess if there's any takeaway from this today, I would like to really encourage the citizens of Thunder Bay to say, okay, what's my role in making this an inclusive community that we all feel safe in, that people can walk down the streets, they know wherever they go, that they're going to receive services that do not have barriers for them.
Well, talking about those barriers, what sort of cultural issues, I guess, has the board identified within the Thunder Bay Police Service, and what changes is it willing to make or has it thought of making at this point?
Do we want to talk about the Human Rights Project? Why don't you talk about some of the training? There's been a fair amount of training that has gone on. I'll let
So there's
Acting Chief.
there's a number of initiatives that we've looked at. Obviously, we've done some training in the last few years in terms of looking at diversity and inclusiveness issues. And this is becoming part of our yearly curriculum for our frontline officers. We've also embarked on an organizational change project. We haven't really disclosed yet in terms of what the parameters of our project are going to look like. But that's something that we're actively currently putting together, and basically stay tuned very shortly in terms of what areas we're going to be looking at within our service to improve and bring about change.
Excuse me. I talked to Tammy Kiash's mother yesterday, and she, we talked for over 20 minutes. She listed off a number of strange incidents. When she finally got the body returned to her daughter, it was like a week later. She requested to see it like 3 times, and you guys had issued a statement that suspected it was drowning, death by drowning. And then she finally got the body back. She told me, she pointed to her hand where she thought she saw bite marks. There's 2 bite marks. So the officer told her, no, it was an impression of a 25-cent quarter. That seems strange. She also said that there was a marking on her face, and it was explained to her, no, that's from the way she died. It's common. She said that when she was found, she was face down just in the reeds where there wasn't very much water. She questioned how she could drown there. She also said that she had 1 shoe on, the other shoe on top of the hill, and that the people that were with her were actually her cousins. And there's 3 of them, there's 4 of them all together. And that they told her that she had left, somehow miraculously came back and died there. And the other person on the street says, no, they left her there. I'm just curious how you can quickly rule there's no evidence that someone may have harmed her, and yet have an ongoing investigation. Like, what's ongoing if you've already determined it's drowning, suicidal, accidental, what have you, based on everything she told me? I'm just curious how you come to that conclusion.
As stated before, this investigation is ongoing and it is still open. It's by no way concluded. And because of the investigation is open, it's still highly confidential, and the family is being updated, including Tammy's mother. All the issues that you've raised have been looked at in some form or another during the investigation. And with respect to the determination of drowning, that's directly from a coroner's report, and that would be up to that office to answer those types of things like cause of death and whatnot. But
she was highly intoxicated, and apparently she was.
Again, that's a toxicology report, which is still,
I'm asking you a question.
we're waiting for it.
Just work with me here for a bit. How hard would it be because you're not really going to struggle if you're that intoxicated. How hard would it be to push someone's head down in the water in those reeds? Because you really got to push down on those reeds to get to the water. If you just stumbled in, like, you're not going to get the water in your face. I don't understand how you can just say that you don't think any criminal activity. How do you come to that conclusion based on different things that are going on? Why would she have 1 shoe on top of the hill, 1 on her? People were with her. Somehow she either was there and they left, or she left and came back. I don't know how you can rule out and say that it's consistent with drowning, which is fine, but there's no criminal activity. How can you say that when there's so many different things going on here?
Yeah, again, consistent with drowning is the manner in which she passed away. The mechanism as far as what caused her to be in the position, etc., has not been ruled out.
But you said, though, you don't think anyone killed her in a roundabout way. You said that.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what I said, was that there's no evidence to link another person or group as being responsible for.
What's that? That means no one killed her, right?
There's no evidence to suggest that.
Well, I just told you, so how does someone have, her mom said when she finally got the body a week later, that she thought there were bite marks on her hands, and the investigator explained to her it was an impression of a quarter. How does that make any sense?
Well, again, that's contained within the investigation, and it's really not appropriate to be discussing that right now.
And it's her daughter, right?
That's
and
correct.
Another question, she asked to hear about on the body 3 times in that week. In the meantime, and she was denied every time. In the meantime, you issued the statements on her daughter's conditions, or the body. And she didn't get to see is there a reason why she couldn't see the body immediately?
And as in any homicide cases and cases that are major, like this one, which are often treated as homicides until they're proven not to be, the body itself is regarded as evidence, and it cannot be tampered with. There's continuity issues, security issues around how it's contained, etc. But beyond that, that would be why no one is allowed near or to touch the body.
Last one on this before you, and I appreciate your patience. If you've ruled out that there's not one person or group are involved in her death.
We haven't ruled it out. I just said at this point, as of today's date, there's no evidence to suggest that.
So then tell us what you're doing then to try and to prove what happened, to determine what happened.
There's more work to be done on all of these cases, and I can't get into it further.
I have a question. Going on what you said that it's treated as a homicide until it's proven otherwise. Tammy Kiash, it was ruled that it was non-criminal in nature before the coroner's report even came out. And in the past, you've held on saying that it's non-criminal until a coroner's report. So can you explain a little bit on the double standard?
Well, it's actually not a double standard. It's the way that evidence is treated is where I'm going with that, is that the way the scene is expected to be treated, the way people are spoken to, that are potentially people of interest, the way that they're cautioned, for instance. Everything that's done and said can potentially be used as evidence later on if it's determined that there are suddenly criminal elements that exist and it's identified that someone is responsible, then by definition it would be a homicide. So to treat it any less from the beginning would cause some issues potentially.
You know, but the Tammy Kiash was ruled non-suspicious right away before the coroner's report even came out, and now it's said that there's other circumstances on the scene that the investigation is still open. So I don't understand why that was ruled so quickly.
Well, I think up to now we're getting into a play on words with respect to anything being ruled anything. Nothing is being ruled non-suspicious. It should speak to the evidence that's supported or available to officers or investigators up to that point are not suspicious, don't indicate criminality, whatever term you'd like to use. It doesn't rule out the fact that at any point during the investigation that someone could come forward. Another piece of evidence could arise from some other technique that could suddenly show us that, okay, someone else is responsible for this and now it's a homicide. But up to this point, there's no evidence to suggest that with either case, as of today's date.
Ms. Dojak, when the OCPC investigation was announced, the board issued a release speaking from Vice Chair McKinnon. Is there an administrative reason that you weren't on that release at that time?
Yes.
What was that?
I was recused from the board at that point in time by OCPC, and if you would like further details of my status, I'm obviously here and acting as board chair. You can contact OCPC directly.
Okay, so that was a period of a week or so?
I think it was a week.
Over that time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when it says, that to my understanding or memory, that was the first acknowledgement of systemic racism. And then from that point, Mr. McKinnon goes on to say that we have a role to play, but it's not just us. What part of it is us as the police service? What part of it is the responsibility of the board specifically to address systemic racism now that we've admitted that it's real?
Our role is certainly if when we get the results from OIPRD that is examining whether there is systemic racism in the service, and I'm not sure exactly when that report is coming now. It'll be a few months from now. Anyway, when the service and the board receive that report, we're going to see if there are recommendations to be made. We'll receive those recommendations and we'll act on them. So that's certainly one thing. That's one of the things. I think more broadly, I'll go back to my earlier comments, that as police service board in this city, along with many other organizations, agencies, City of Thunder Bay, we all need to work together in our respective roles on those boards, committees and agencies, and as citizens of Thunder Bay. So that's the other role, and so I think specifically we'll look at the results of the OIPRD report, and then more generally as partners in the community.
Was there a reason the board didn't issue a statement or inform the public at all that you were recused over the period of that week?
It was not a public matter, and no, there was no reason.
Acting Chief Hoff, you've alluded many times to reports that are going to be coming out within the next few months on how to move the service forward. Before those reports come out, what do you plan to do in the immediate future to change perceptions and challenges within the service?
There's a few things that we can look at. If you can just go back to last Thursday, I think our presence and our community engagement in terms of the unity walk that took place with the community of North Caribou speaks volume, not just for our service, but for the community as a whole, to be able to come together in a time of the death of a child, and to be able to be unified towards common goals, towards public safety. I think it speaks volume. I'd like to continue on that momentum. We've been working for the last year on a number of inquest recommendations. We've built some very strong partnerships within the community, both with agencies, organizations, and within NAN, Anishinaabe-Aski, working with Deputy Grand Chief Annabelle Ashinishkam on a number of initiatives. And that partnership has been very productive and very beneficial, not only to us as a service, but to our city and to the safety of our community.
Chair Dojak, I have some documentation. Rainy River First Nation requested to meet with the board to discuss these issues last winter. That request was denied by the board, citing that the current independent police review taking place. However, the office has said that the purpose of the review is not to interfere with any public informing or any public engagement or informing of current cases, regardless of whether they're reviewing them or not. And you mentioned, meeting with partners, people. Why wouldn't that be a step or a meeting that you would take advantage of?
The advice that I received at that time was that it was inappropriate to meet until the review was finished, because that matter had been referred to the OIPRD, and the advice that I received as board chair was that I shouldn't, that we should not be meeting at that time until we had the results of the review.
Advice from whom?
It was legal advice that I had.
And now that you know that the office of the Independent Police Review Director has said that the review is not to interfere in public engagement and informing, will that change now, or are you still going to wait until the end of the review, which is probably not till the end of the year now?
I think the review is done. No. Oh, okay. You know what? I'm going to consult. We will consult with OIPRD on that, and because we certainly don't want to interfere in any way. That's meant to be a neutral third-party review. So we certainly will consult.
I can just read to you what they say. The OIPRD's systemic review is not designed to prevent the Thunder Bay Police Service from informing the public and the families, as is appropriate, of the progress of these or any other investigations. Yet, even in the cases of Keash and Bay, Thunder Bay Police has said that they will not disclose any information, public information, because of that. So, can you address that, please?
I think what you need to understand, though, in the context of those investigations, that there are some privacy issues. I mean, we were in daily contact with the families, and there were requests made that certain aspects of the investigation not be disclosed publicly. And that's respecting the victims and the families' wishes.
I'm not talking about the families' wishes, though. That can be completely understood. I'm talking about claims that you guys aren't going to disclose or share any of that information because of this systemic review that's taking place.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
The Office of the Independent Police Review Director has said that, just as I read, yet you guys continue to say in these cases that you are not going to talk about it or whatever, inform the public of anything because of this review. You won't meet with Radio River First Nation because of that.
No, I believe I just said that I would consult with OIPRD and we'll speak to them. And if it's not going to interfere with the review, we will meet with them as a board.
You will meet with them as a board.
Yes.
Are any of the other previous deaths of First Nation youth in Thunder Bay waterways being treated as criminal in nature or foul play suspected?
Well, I think you can appreciate that we went through a very thorough and a very lengthy inquest, and that process spoke to the manner in which those 7 deaths occurred. And I don't think that's something that we need to rediscuss or revisit today. I think the inquest speaks for itself in terms of the outcome, the findings, and the recommendations.
So no foul play suspected in any of those deaths?
Some of the deaths were undetermined.
And that doesn't include foul play then, or does it include foul play?
I'm sorry?
Say, does that include foul play, or could that include foul play?
No, that's a definition on its own, indeterminate.
You had mentioned earlier that the Thunder Bay Police Service had contacted the OPP in regards to the investigation of the death of Stacey DeBungy. In that contact, when you did it late last fall, was that for a review of the city police investigation, or was that to conduct an independent investigation of the death of Stacey DeBungy?
Sorry, what was the first part of your question?
You had mentioned earlier that Thunder Bay Police had contacted the OPP late last year to conduct a review of the death of Stacey DeBungy. Was that a review of the Thunder Bay Police investigation, or was that an internal or an independent investigation of the death of Stacey DeBungy?
It's a review of the investigation conducted by our service.
Okay, as I understand, the results of that have been returned to city police. Will you be making the full results of that made to the public?
To the public, not at this time.
Why not?
It's being reviewed by our service currently. And then where it goes from there is yet to be determined.
Will it be made available to the public then?
Well, there's still the process of the OIPRD review, and the debunking matter is part of the OIPRD review. Therefore, the report will make part of the OIP review.
So you need clearance from the OIPRD in order to release that information? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not that we need clearance. We're under the guise right now of the director's review, and we are cooperating fully with his direction and his review.
Okay, so if the OIPRD says it's okay for city police to release that information, will you make it available?
We will. However, at this time, it's a report that hasn't even gone. We've just received it in the last 2 weeks. The report itself is being reviewed by our department, and then conversations will be had with the director of the OIPRD.
Given the number of deaths of First Nations youth in the last couple of decades and that those numbers continue to increase, are you guys investigating the possibility that First Nations kids are being targeted in Thunder Bay?
Every aspect is being investigated, including that.
And how?
I think what's important to us and for the public to realize is that we count on everybody in our community just as much as our investigators. There's often information in the community that's not either coming to light or that we're hearing from third-hand information. So it's really a plea today that we need to work together. There's a lot of information there that would be very beneficial to our investigators, or that would corroborate or help substantiate or move an investigation forward. So it's really reestablishing those lines of communication and that trust so that we can be successful in our investigation and work together towards that.
What are you doing to reconcile the fact that many people just simply do not trust the Thunder Bay Police to come forward with any information that may be helpful.
That goes to one of my earlier statements. I mean, we're in a position as a police service that we can't fix all of the systemic racism
What
issues
can
in our
you
city.
fix for yourselves, though?
We
to
can
improve
continue
that?
with, I mean, I think our lines of communication have been great since we've been working on our inquest recommendations. We've built a lot of good working relationships with NAN, for example, with DFC, with Matawa Learning Center, educational facilities that deal day to day with our youth, our Indigenous youth that come to the city. And I think it's important that we continue building those bridges and working daily with them. And that's the contact we've had in terms of trying to rebuild that trust and having that day-to-day contact.
But how is that trust being rebuilt when they want the RCMP to take over these investigations?
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
Well, I'm just saying, how do you restore this trust when First Nation leaders have come on TV saying that they don't have trust in the Thunder Bay Police anymore?
Well, you're asking me a question that, I mean, the leaders themselves are insinuating that the trust is permeating all aspects of our community. I'm not sure that to what extent. I mean, that's coming from the NAN leadership.
So you're saying the NAN leadership only speaks for the NAN leadership and not the people?
I'm just saying that they've come forward and that was their position. Based on what I see in our daily interactions and how we do business, we do have a lot of public support. We do have a lot of positive interactions. And when you look back at our walk last Thursday, we had people from every walk of life, from every ethnicity, that was there as a common goal towards the purpose of rebuilding and working together.
No disrespect, but that wasn't for Thunder Bay Police, that was for the family of Tammy Kiash.
100%. However, the invitation was there. We were glad to be there. We were humbled to be there. And I think it speaks volume to the community, not only of North Caribou, but of Thunder Bay, to be able to be there as in unity, really.
I just spoke with a family this morning whose 15-year-old son escaped an attempted abduction over the weekend last Saturday. Police responded. He was taken to the hospital where he was treated for 6 hours, and then he walked home from the hospital by himself at 6 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning, after surviving an attempted abduction. The family is asking that the OPP investigate this case because they don't have any trust in the Thunder Bay Police given all of these recent activities. What's your thoughts on that? That's just today.
Well, two thoughts. One, I mean, we're not here today to discuss separate cases. I mean, I don't think it's the venue to do so. But going back to my previous statement, I think it would be beneficial for them to come forward with the information. We can't do our job without being able to do that initial contact.
No, you guys responded to the call, so you're well aware. But what I'm saying is they have no trust in you guys to carry out an effective investigation. And they would like another police service to do that. That's just today. This is a recent event that took place over the weekend involving a 16-year-old kid. How do you respond to that?
Well, one, I can't comment on why he was released and walking home from the hospital. However, I can comment that our investigators are well trained. They're caring individuals. They're moms and dads that lives in the community, and that they have a vested. Let me finish, please. They have a vested interest in the investigation that they do, and they take those to heart. We do our job 100% to the best of our abilities, and we put our best foot forward every day. So I would encourage them to call us and to work with us. The investigation doesn't seem like it's over, and I wouldn't want to make just a suggestion based on what you're saying that you need to go somewhere else. Let us do our job.
Does that mistrust within the First Nations community, though, impede your investigations, like talking to witnesses, that sort of thing?
It does, and it has at times. And it's something that we work towards in terms of trying to make it better. There's really an opportunity for us. It does impede. It does make it sometimes difficult to be able to get the full picture of all the information. But it's not something that deters us. We are committed. Like I said, we are professionals, and we want to do our job to our best abilities. Therefore, we need to keep working on those relationships and ensuring that that trust is there and that we can do so productively.
Hi, Sorry, I've been hearing all of this, and you seem to be saying that you are doing your best, and I think everybody here can understand that. Do you recognize, though, that there seems to be a problem, a crisis here, and that in the hindsight, maybe certain things that you might have done or said, certain press releases concerning Tammy Kiash, sent right away, even before the reporter's report was received. Do you recognize that you do have some kind of a responsibility in this crisis, and that certain things you might have said or done maybe didn't help at all the relationship?
So I don't see our situation as a crisis. However, I do, no. I see it as a situation, a current situation that we can work through. And it's something that involves all of our community members. We are part of this community as a police service. Some of the issues that we are relating to are not only specific to the Thunder Bay Police. And we can't just as a service alone fix everything that needs to be addressed. However, yes, we are not 100% perfect. No agency, no corporation, no one is 100% effective and always, at the top of their game. Have we learned along the way? Yes. We've made changes. We've been open and very cooperative with the OIP review. We've worked hand in hand with the director, and we're open. We're transparent. We're open, and we want to move things forward and be mindful of the changes that need to occur.
So you said this is not a crisis for you. What would be a crisis? I mean,
Sorry.
yeah.
I think that's kind of an unfair question. What would be a crisis? I mean, you paint the picture, and then we'll tell you whether we think that's a crisis or not. I mean, that's a hard one. Yeah, what would be a crisis? I mean, one can envision all kinds of things that would be a crisis. I think Acting Chief Houth is saying, we do not feel this is a crisis. We said, and her opening remarks were saying that to say that we are in challenging times would be an understatement, okay? So we recognize, we certainly are in challenging times. That's different than being in crisis.
Crisis, I don't know, you have multiple investigations, your chief's under investigation, you're charged with a crime, your board's under investigation, you have multiple kids dying in the river, you don't know how some of them died, it's undetermined. That's not a crisis? I think anywhere else in the world, that's a crisis.
For us currently, though, what we see is business as usual. We have a job to do. We have a community to serve and protect, and we need to keep doing so as a policing agency. Yes, there are a lot of challenging events that are occurring around us on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and it has been a challenging period for us. However, we need to continue as an agency to do what we do best, and that is to serve and protect our citizens.
This isn't business as usual, and most of the members of the community do view this as a crisis situation, though. So would it not be prudent for city police to treat it as such?
I think it just becomes what you're using as a terminology and a word. I mean, we can agree to disagree on that point. If the community sees this as a crisis, that's their perception. I'm not negating the fact that there are challenging times, not at all. I mean, we know we have a lot of things on our plate right now. But as I've stated, it's still business as usual. We have a job to do. And no matter, even if there's other things that occur, we still have that job to do. That is to serve and protect, and we will continue to do so.
So I just want to clarify, you've said that you don't believe this is a crisis, that it's business as usual, and that it's the community's perception that this is a crisis, correct?
No, I said that everybody has a different perception in terms of how they view it.
You just said that's the community's perception.
I think this gentleman here said that that's the community's perception.
I'm pretty sure.
No, you said that,
that too. You just said that's the community's perception.
That may be the
Okay,
community's
I think we need to wrap
perception.
this up.
That may be the community's perception.
Given that most of the criticism has to do with First Nation kids and cases, is the board looking at bringing First Nation representation onto it?
Yes, we currently have a vacancy on the board, and the board passed a motion a few months ago seeking to have an Indigenous resource person to the board, and we have that person now, Ms. Serenity Perry. We are hoping that appointment, that vacancy, is done by the government, and we're waiting for the government to fill that vacancy. And we have requested that be an Indigenous person.
Can you just clarify something too? In order for the RCMP to take over these investigations, does the Thunder Bay Police Service leadership have to make that request?
Yes, the RCMP does not have jurisdiction in terms of local investigation, so it would have to be through us.
And you're not making that request?
Not at this time. We currently have a review process underway. NAN leadership itself has expressed that they have confidence in the OI Purity review, and that we will continue to cooperate with the director and follow that course of action. Thank you.
Thank you.